And I want to thank all of the setup team for bringing these amazing flowers and getting them all set, and the coffee maker and the person with the key. Thank you, Earl and Pamela, and everyone who is here today. So my name is Gay, and I'm going to, hold on just a minute, sorry. Right page. Okay. And thank you, Catherine. So good morning, and welcome to the Vashon Island Unitarian Universalists. My name is Gay Roselle. I use she, her pronouns, and I will be your service leader today. If you are visiting, please participate as you feel comfortable. You're invited to stay and introduce yourself in conversation following the service. Our congregation is committed to individual freedom of belief, welcomes diversity, seeks to promote a sense of community, and fosters religion, which enriches the spirit. We are a mostly lay-led community, strengthened and enriched by weaving together the volunteer contributions of members and friends. Our community is supported and guided by our minister, Reverend Victoria Poling. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Swabash Coast Salish Native people. The Puyallup people have lived on and stewarded these lands since the beginning of time and continue to do so today. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step toward true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of this land and beyond. As Unitarian Universalists, we value interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. We covenant to cherish Earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships. And I'd like to share a quote from today's speaker. There's a lot of quotes. We are all creators, pulled forward by the faint call of our next assignment. Walking a creative path challenges the part of us that has to know where we are going. But to create the art of life, we have to risk the unknown. A cold wind invigorates as the angels cheer. As we begin our service, take a couple of breaths to become fully present. Relax and bring your attention into this moment of communal reflection and sharing. I'd like to invite Robbie Rohr to light our chalice and share our chalice lighting reading.
Too challenging. So our reading this morning is by Reverend Joe Cherry. Joy is hard. Joy requires us to feel safe enough, to be safe enough, to open to vulnerability. To feel joy, you must be brave. Joy walks into a room after the space has been cleared. Cleared of shame, cleared of doubt, cleared of self-recrimination. Joy is hard. Joy is hard, and joy is worth the hard work of preparation. Preparing oneself and setting down all the defenses, all the shoulds and the could'ves, all the should not haves and the might haves. Joy is worth the work. You are worth the work. You can start small. The simple pleasure of your favorite tea, the grand freedom of a belly laugh. Invite joy to be your companion.
Wonderful. Thank you, Robbie. Okay. Okay, and our next speaker is Julia, who's going to read the opening reading.
This is a reading by John O'Donohue. It's titled For the Artist at the Start of Day. And I would just invite you all, even if you don't consider yourself an artist, just think about nurturing creativity, like we heard in Sally's quote. May morning be astir with the harvest of night, your mind quickening to the eros of a new question, your eyes seduced by some unintended glimpse that cut through the surface to a source. May this be a morning of innocent beginning, when the gift within you slips clear of the sticky web of the personal with its hurt and its hauntings and its fixed fortress corners. A morning when you become a pure vessel for what wants to ascend from silence. May your imagination know the grace of perfect danger, to reach beyond imitation and the wheel of repetition, deep into the call of all the unfinished and unsolved, until the veil of the unknown yields and something original begins to stir toward your senses and grow stronger in your heart.
Thank you, Julia. Okay. And Kat?
Okay. So, my favorite ex-husband, the one I still talk to. His name is Andrew Calhoun. He's a brilliant songwriter, and he wrote this song in honor of his mother, who I used to describe not only as a tiny, tiny, towering personality, but that she was like a prairie fire, because things grew beautifully around Joy Calhoun after she burned everything to the ground. So, in honor of Joy Calhoun, a song by Andrew Calhoun, please join in. If you feel like it, you'll get the words. She was actually wonderful. Welcome, I won't keep you long. Drink a glass and sing a song. What comes with a hug and a kiss that fills your heart, and it sounds like this. Joy, 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 joy. Joy, 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 joy. Joy. As usual, we're gonna welcome to the house of love, glory in the sun above. Hear a whisper of delight that comes to find you in the night. Joy, 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 joy. Joy, 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 joy. If life's a rich and a muddled mess, if squander, cherish, curse, and bless, though it passes much the same, echoing my mother's name. Joy, 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 joy. Joy, 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 joy. Joy. Where the way is overgrown, when you're weary to the bone, lift your eyes up to the skies, and from your heart you will feel it rise.
Thank you, Kat. That was absolutely beautiful. I'd now like to introduce our guest speaker, Sally Jean Fox. And Sally is a PhD, is a writer, artist, and coach mentor to those making creative transitions in their lives. She's the author of Meeting the Muse After Midlife, a story about finding meaning and joy amidst the uncertainties of aging. In her former career, she was an organizational storyteller, consultant, and taught leadership at Antioch University in Seattle, where she directed the graduate management program. A 17-year Vashon resident, you often can find her in her garden on Maury Island, riding her Connemara mare or making happy messes in her art studio. Her talk will focus on how we can find more joy as we age, even amidst the uncertainties of today's challenging environment, and why the third act of life, from age 50 on, may be the best time to develop our creative expression, and how creativity and art can become a path to spiritual awakening as well as a lot of fun. Okay, and Sally and I know each other from way back, and probably 15 years.
Wow.
I know,
Yeah.
time flies.
Yeah.
And we were in a poetry circle together, and then I came across her book, Meeting the Muse After Midlife, and it totally changed my mind. And and I went to one of her workshops on creativity, and it's amazing. So art as a stance toward life. Behind our work and play lives a spark. We nurture it by giving thanks and honoring its magic, then letting it expand us. The spark works through us, but it is not ours. When we forget that, our art becomes hollow. Your job is to keep returning to the place that feels most alive in you and nurturing that. And rhythms and routines. I'm going to let you talk in a minute, Sally. To give yourself to your creative work is no small feat. It demands a sacrifice, a discipline, a turning away from the demands of the parts of life that claw at you with pseudo-importance. The world is intent on distracting us from who we are, seducing us with attractions, offers, and entertainments. We risk losing the holiness of our days and our precious moments to create. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to honor Sally Fox.
Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can you hear me? I don't think I'm on. Am I on? Am I? Can you hear me? Okay, because I have a soft voice. So do this if you can't hear me. I am so, it brings me joy to be here. I've been one of those secret people who drops in via the video to be a part of your services, and I've been blessed to do that, so I've had a sense of the room, and I've been looking forward to this so much. And especially since you gave me an opportunity to speak on Joy Month. You know, that is so great. I'm just so excited, and I have stuff to say about it, but I loved the quote that you read, Robbie, but I want to challenge it, because I feel like we need to challenge ourselves, because I don't know that I necessarily always have space to find joy. Because you know how it is, I don't know about you, but 3 a.m. in the morning, stuff starts coming in the loudspeaker. Oh my God, he did this. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so I would say, you know, I travel with a pretty low-grade anxiety all the time that sparks periodically, and certainly I am not enlightened, and my spaciousness goes in and out. However, I think you can find joy without that, because this morning I was sitting there looking at the tulips. The tulip, I don't know what you call them, blossoms from the tulip tree, and you go in and you just say, that is so beautiful. Magnolia, is it? Oh, thank you. Correction. Thank you. The magnolia. And something starts to happen. you quiet, you observe, and then maybe if you're lucky, it'll start talking to you and telling you something from the world of beauty, or the world of permanence or impermanence, or just what it's like to live out in nature. I don't know what secrets you have, Magnolia Blossoms. But I know that I don't have to be enlightened to be able to listen to them and find them. So when I was writing my book, and I'll tell you how it started, the last word on my subtitle, A Journey to Meaning, Creativity, and Joy, was joy. Because I started the journey maybe 20 years ago, and at that point, joy felt like a nice thing, kind of discretionary, you know, like, don't we all want joy? Nah, 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 nah. But I added the title because it did feel authentic to the book. And now, as I live with the book and I continue to write about how we can find light in dark times, I realize joy is not discretionary. Joy is not discretionary. Joy keeps us whole. Joy keeps us going. Joy allows us to bear our griefs. And joy doesn't expect us to be perfect or enlightened or even completely spacious. Joy, like the Muse, is out there waiting to be tapped into whenever we're ready to listen. And I had the joy of listening to the presentation when Molly Peachmatter was here. And I know Molly in a different context. She's my Zumba instructor. And we danced together. And so I went up to her when I found out from my friend Janie Starr that Molly is an immigration rights lawyer who has, I cried speaking about her because she's doing such a wonderful thing for this community and for so many. But I went to Molly and I said, Molly, how do you do it? How do you walk every day with the broken hearts that are all around you? And I want to interview you on my Voice of Ashen radio show. And so she came in and we had a fantastic conversation. It'll air in a couple of weeks. But we were sitting there and both of us knew that, you know, in a sense, Zumba and moving and creating, they weren't discretionary. They keep Molly going in the face of, you know, a horrendous reality that she gets to navigate and work with. And so I feel like that's true for all of us. And so I want us to claim our joy just the way I want us to claim our creativity. Because unfortunately in our culture, and I'm not quite sure why, but creativity is, but it's sometimes turned into this hallowed word that, you know, some people are creative, but most of us aren't. And I had a friend who said to me, she said, Sally, don't put creativity in the title of your book because then people like me won't be interested in reading it. And I looked at her and she is one of the most empathic, smartest, activist, fellow organizational consultant. I know she's creative, but not like me. She doesn't like going into the studio and getting covered with paint. That's not her deal. She's much more neat, shall we say. But she's creative in her way. And so I think the whole thing about creativity is not to put yourself into a mold, but to find that essence that's you, to believe it, to trust it, to find joy in it, and then to let it lead you forward. And to me, that's the journey with the Muse. It's that deep listening to what's already there, to what's calling you, to what might be trickling in from above. Whatever it is, find the whispers and then dare to follow them. And the good news, as I know in this audience, a lot of us have gray hair, many of us are over 60, you know, and so a lot of us have gone through the quest that I've gone through to figure out what has heart and meaning in the third chapter of life. It's certainly not a bill of goods we were sold. You know, when I was growing up, aging meant three things. Aging meant, whoa. It's sort of the off-ramp leading to death. I mean, really, that's it. Deterioration and, you know, and that narrative is very strong in our culture. But the other thing to make it more sort of palliative or whatever is they give you this term called retirement. Oh, but you'll be retired. And as I started aging into the third act of life, that's the last thing I want to do. I want to engage with life. Like, people in this room engage with life. And although you may be formally retired from a job, retirement doesn't give you anything. What gives you something is that engagement, that feeling for the future that you want to walk into. And so the retirement script didn't offer anything. And then there's another insidious one that you see in the magazines. It's called leisure living. And you know it. It's when you're on the dock and it's, the beautiful sunset and you're looking at your husband and you're thinking, how delightful it is to be entitled. That's what they're selling. You look in the magazines. But the truth is, and because I know people and I don't want to, if you have a beautiful dock, how wonderful and how lucky that is. But I know that you may get a call that the dock has rot. Because docks are docks. They're going to rot. Or you may have a call that someone in your family has gotten a diagnosis. Or you may get a call that your granddaughter, who is having some trouble with drugs, needs to live with you. Nobody is off the hook. And leisure living was a marketing concept that was developed in the 50s. Leisure living is a myth. We live in our interactions, in our engagement, in our creativity. And if sometimes it's beautiful and we can enjoy that sunset, and sometimes it's gritty. And we have it all. So the wonderful thing about aging, and I discovered this at the start of my journey when my dad was dying of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, there's nothing like losing somebody who's a beloved to you to make you realize there is an end. It's going to come. And because of that, why are you waiting to claim the life that you want to have? So looking at my father, it was sort of like, okay, in his honor, what do you want to do, Sally, to be more you? To be more you. And at the same time that my dad was dying, I was entering menopause, great combo. And my brain was getting scrambled every night, and I get, night sweats. But the night sweats were dealable. But the hard part was the questions that were emerging. And one of the questions that came up was, okay, Sally, you don't like these narratives about aging, but what's going to get you through the next 30 or 40 years? And don't you think it's worth figuring that out as you become 50, 60, 70, and beyond? So I'm one of those people who just likes to find meaning, and I started out on that quest to figure out what is going to give me joy and meaning in this stage of my life. Fortunately, at the time, and I was in my mid-50s, I got a contract to go to Japan. And I love Japan. I love Japan. Japan is crazy, and Japan is exquisite. But I love particularly the exquisite part, the rough tea bowls, the arrangements, the ikebana, and the gardens. And I would just sit there in the Japanese gardens, and it was like a part of me would fade away, that part that was rushed and professional and always wanting to appear competent and always wanting to have people think that I knew what I was doing. She could go on hold for a while. In the gardens, there was just green, bamboo and cypress and ornamental grasses and cherry trees, and I would melt. And I embarrassed my husband, Steve, over there, who is truly the star of the show. My husband, I would embarrass him because I would be like transfixed. I have to take another picture. I have to have another moment. I have to be here. And a guard would come up and he'd go, "Sumimasen." "Sumimasen." And I would be like, I'd say, "Sumimasen, you don't understand. I am a driven professional woman who has never given herself to just sitting in moments of beauty. I need this. I need to fill up." But I had to leave anyway. Yeah. And so then when I was flying back on my very last trip, because I had this contract that spanned 3 years and a number of trips, I was on the airplane and I realized how much I was going to miss those gardens, those moments of exquisite beauty. And not only the beauty, but my being with them in the way that just gave my heart over to beauty. And I started to cry. So, I'm starting to sniffle, and I pull that gray United Airlines blanket over the top of my head so nobody will see me, and I go, "Did you say, would you like some white chicken breast?" I go, "No, I don't think so." And I go down and cry again. And, but then I heard the Muse. She didn't have that name yet for me, but I heard the little voice say, Sally, you love your Seattle life, you love your husband, but you have to find what's going to bring you joy when you get off this plane. And I give you 11 hours, that's the length of the trip, 11 hours to find it. And if you don't, I'm dumping that big cloud of depression all down on you. So 11 hours before you leave this plane, you're going to figure it out. Yep, I'm going to figure it out. So I realized, here I am, an organizational consultant, and I spend so much time talking about vision statements and mission statements and finding your purpose and North Star and all those good word things. But on the plane, I realized a word thing wasn't going to do it for me. It had to be a heart thing that would be sensual, that would be pleasurable, that I could carry in my feelings, not just my head. So I would think about, the taste of blueberries at the height of the summer. I would think about jumping into cold water on a hot day. I would think of the smell of a breeze in a cold morning. And I would begin to melt into this world of sensuality and beauty. Until at one point, the word that I was seeking came to me through an image. And it was peonies. Now, at the time, I wasn't a gardener. I didn't really know what peonies were. But I could see a bouquet of pastel colors. And I knew that they had a really light, velvety feel. And I could almost smell them. But I knew this truly was from the Muse. And she was speaking in code. And what she was telling me was, you need beauty in your life. And not just beauty that you go and absorb in a garden. You need beauty that you roll up your sleeves and create. And that will be your life. Now get going. I got off the plane and I said, when you receive a gift from your inner voice, from the Muse, the one thing that you need to do is this right for me? And if it is, put it into practice. Because the Muse comes, but if you don't listen, she'll drift away, or he, or they, or it, And so I got going, and I started creating. I created in any way I could. I mean, I could create with rocks on a pavement. I created wrapping paper. I worked with Ikebana. I started a garden when I moved to Vashon, and that's a whole crazy story right there. And my life opened up, and I realized I had found a pathway to my deepest self. Because it wasn't just about having to be somebody anymore. I was doing things that I wasn't particularly good at. I didn't have to have talent for these. I just had to have passion and be willing to say yes to what called me and called me and called me. So I continued on the journey. So there's many of these journeys that I have in my book, Meeting Muse After Midlife, and I don't have as much time as I'd love to have here to tell you about them, but I want to tell you about one particular journey. Oh, my man just said 5 minutes, so this is just in time. Thank you very much. The one message that I had about my creative work through the years was, Sally, you're pretty smart, and you can kind of write, but you are not an artist. End of story. Decided when I was 10 years old and I received that B in art class. I'm smart, I am not an artist, the world is clear. And I continued like that for years. My dad, however, when he turned 50, really devoted himself to his watercolors. It was his secret world. It brought him alive. And I loved my dad. So he packaged up all his supplies when he was dying and left them in a big box. And after he died, I happened to inherit that box. And I went into it, and it was almost like sacred space. It was like my dad was living in every box. My dad was living in those watercolors. And I thought, someday, I'll mess around. And then I put the box back together, and I put it on a shelf, and I left it for 17 years. Because I wasn't an artist, and I was busy. And plus I was still trying to be credible in the world. 17 years later, I was at a party with, Julie, you'll like this, with Shireen. And it was a birthday party, and there I met Jack Peterson, and he said, I want you to meet my wife, my wife, Jerry, she's an artist. And I said, great. And Jerry, who's this wonderful person who has tremors, she said to me, do you know, I have tremors. I went, I think I do. She said, but I still paint. I went, oh, that's cool. And you can come to my watercolor class at the senior center. It's so much fun. We do it every, and it's really cheap and you don't have to do it. And I go, standard answer, I don't have time. And besides, I'm not an artist. But Jerry is like this pit bull. She's like, what do you mean you're not an artist? Come to my class. Did you hear me? Come to my class. So I said to Jerry, okay. And Steve over there, he said, why don't you go? It's at the senior center. It's not like it's this big competitive standard. So I go and I finally say on the way out, I say, and because the Muse the Muse can be forceful. And the Muse this time said to me, she said, Sally, you've had that box for 17 years. You're on a creative quest. You're out for exploring. Why don't you do Jerry's class? And if you don't, why don't you give the box away? I did Jerry's class. I went there, and if any of you have taken it at the Senior Center, it's absolutely wonderful. The watercolors they do. All I had to do was take out watercolors that I brought from my dad and pour them onto the page, wet on wet. It's a watercolor technique, and it couldn't be easier to watch waves of rose madder float into yellow gamboge with a little bit of magenta in the background. And I was transfixed. And I came home and I cried. I cried because a word had been taken away from my vocabulary, and I realized it would never come back. And those words were, I am not an artist. Nobody said I was a good artist. Nobody said I was going to be great or I didn't have a ton to learn, and I've been painting ever since. But I could never go back to those words. So that's part of what I want to do. Part of my mission right now is to have us expunge from our vocabulary all that would constrict us to not being our full selves, our full creative selves, in whatever way that looks like, in whatever way the Muse or your heart is calling you, to look at where those old messages have stopped us, and to be able to say, isn't it time? And how long are you going to wait to use this wild and precious life that you still have in front of you? And as the last piece, and right now more than ever, because I feel like the process of tanking up on creativity and joy needs to be a daily practice. The forces out there are not in our favor. They're going after institutions, they're going after museums, they're going after art, and they're going after people. But don't let them touch your creative spirit. Don't let them touch the part of you that can find joy anywhere, in a magnolia, in a walk, because that's what keeps us going. And if we keep going and spread that joy to others so that they can keep going, we'll find the steps that we need to take. And I trust this community to do
Wow. Thank you. Okay, another quote. As we create beauty, we find the beauty that lives in us as well. And that was from Marco, one of Sally's muses. Let us hold a moment in contemplation and worship, an old English word that means to consider things of worth in a generous and abundant silence.
tune from the 1600s in Ireland. It's called Give Me Your Hand. I just thought you might want to know that.
Thank you, Kat. I'm so glad you played that. I just came across a picture of my grandfather, who I never knew, who played the mandolin. And I was listening to a CD on Irish mandolin, so that was beautiful. So, joys and concerns. We are now going to pause the recording as we prepare for joys and concerns. For the offertory, our congregation engages beyond our walls for peace, social and economic justice, freedom of belief, and protection of our planet and its inhabitants. Once a month, we contribute the financial offering to a regional, national, or international organization that aligns with our values. This week's offering supports our beloved VIUU community. As we receive our offering, please join in singing We Give Thanks. The words are printed on the inside of your gray hymnal or on the back of the laminated order of service. Thank you.
We give thanks for this precious day, for those gathered here and those far away, for the time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
In closing, we're going to have two more brief readings from Sally's book, meeting the Muse after midlife. You are the carpenter building the scaffolding for your creative life. Create a sanctuary to support your creative life. Create a sanctuary to support your heart's work. You will feel beholden to obligations outside of your control, but your space, your sanctuary, will give you a place to return, a temple that honors your longing. We cannot promise that the world won't be difficult and break your heart. Yet this is your time to be here, the only time you have to express beauty in a way that can comfort others or even yourself. Return to your creative core when you need a place of holiness and wholeness. Let it be your anchor.
So Gay made a request this week, and thank you for doing that. It was for something from the show that we did a couple of times here on the island called Kissing the Joy as It Flies, in honor of Brian Doyle. I'm reading 2 of his books right now in bits and pieces, again, because this is something I wrote in honor of him. Something about the way he thought was very familiar, and all of its messiness. Last night the sky was singing. I'll tell you what I heard, 1,000 voices ringing. I couldn't catch the words. Tell me I was dreaming. Say it was the rain. That's okay, you're right. But I heard singing all the same. Today the earth came dancing. It rose and knocked me flat, as if the ground were stretching and rolling like a cat. I know it was an earthquake, you don't have to tell me that. But still my garden waltzed and spun and left me where I sat. I heard the forest shouting, it does that all the time. Of course the dog was barking, she nearly lost her mind. I could see the raven that was laughing from the trees, but she's convinced that dogs can fly, she thinks a lot like me. You can call me crazy and you wouldn't be the first. I guess it's not the best thing that I tell you what is worse. I'd rather be crazy if the other road to take is a soul that sees no beauty and a heart that never breaks. So tonight the sky is singing.
Thank you so much, Kat. Marilee, come on up.
Joy, a benediction from Dr. David Breeden. May your heart dance in wisdom and wonder. May golden light and a whispering breeze fill your moments with joy. the very spark of being. Live like a sage, play like a child, dance with the moments as they arrive.
Our formal service is now over. I'd like to give a special thanks